Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've been pushing this idea for a while, and it's not without controversy. And this is one of those ideas where I would like to do a live stream with a handful of people, not one person, but like 4 or 5 people, and we debate this topic because I think there's you can debate it lots of different ways, and I think it's an interesting one. You wrote in, and let's get into kind of the premise here. It says, "Does more money equal better comics?" Okay, so my theory and my premise is if there's more money in comics, you're going to attract stronger people. You're going to make it more of a destination rather than a hopping stone. And it's better to, increase the finances in comics. You get better results. And I truly do believe that. And I think there's lots of evidence to support it. But I also acknowledge that it's not a cure all solution. And you don't just wave dollars at problems and they magically get better. There's a lot of details there to work out. So let's get to this mail and see what angle this writer has. It says, "Hey Perch, I must admit I wouldn't care so much about the manga versus comic discussion if not for this premise. In seeing how successful manga can be just by being a normal business, I personally don't see much of what manga has done in the U.S. as anything special, as far as I understand it. I can't help but think that the U.S. comic industry might have missed its chance to grow beyond its current niche. I say niche, it's a regional thing, believe it or not. Everybody says it, niche. Say it niche. It's like, whatever. Anyway, say it. Niche. There you go. If it just used a bit more common sense, its current digital strategy still doesn't make sense to me. So, by the way, as we get more into this, one of the best counter arguments to we need more money into comics and things will go better is manga, because by and large there is much less money in manga. And no matter what people have told you, some really big YouTubers. There's some kind of big anime con going on in like a week down in Houston, and a bunch of YouTubers are on that thing. And almost all of them have expressed this note that manga creators are living fat and happy. Manga creators are usually dirt ass poor. It is. There's a few. Rumiko Takahashi is doing really really well. I'm sure I'm sure several of the super big names are doing just fine. Frankly, just like is true in U.S. comics. But by and large, mangaka is a just poverty level job, and the money is largely worse. I could say definitively, but let's get to. And by the way, I agree completely with the point. A lot of the issues in the U.S. comic industry, I mean, as you've heard in this channel, they are common sense. It's like, hey, we see that the mass market has shelves that are built at a specific size to generate maximum throughput of product that are sold on said shelves. What should we do in terms of the comics? I know, let's make them a random ass size that doesn't fit there. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We've always done it that way, so let's keep doing it that way. If we change, people will be mad, even if it drives us into bankruptcy. Like, sounds great. Hey, people are struggling to afford our comics. What should we do? I know. Let's charge more. That's a and so it goes. Let's finish the mail. It says, if only the U.S. comic industry was more competent, it could therefore get more money to pay their talent better, perhaps even attract their new talent. With the budget not being so tight, maybe the industry can afford to take a few risks, delve into other genres or something. With more money, surely it would lead to better comic books, or at least more comic books, and thus have a higher chance of creating great comic books, right? Rolling 100 dice versus rolling a pair of them. Generally true, that statement. It's a business philosophy called multiple shots on goal. And the idea is a simple one. It's like, hey, if we're going to try a business approach, a business strategy, rather than, the older way of saying this would be put all your eggs in one basket. Rather than try one idea, let's try 6. Now, the challenge with that is that if you try 6 ideas, you are banking on the fact that 5 of them will fail, maybe all 6. But in general, you're banking on one winner. Now, it's possible you create patents or you create business opportunities, some of the other ideas. You see things that expose that you can then later bring into your winning idea. But it's generally one idea will win, 5 ideas will lose if you take 6 shots on goal. The challenge with that is that companies and teams really struggle with that idea. Samsung, as a business, notoriously had this practice where when they were going to create a new phone or TV or some new technology, they would put 3 to 4 teams working on it. And one of those teams would win, and the other 3 to 4 would be dissolved. and it was they created internal kind of political competition to be the winning team, and it worked for that culture. I think that approach would probably be disastrous in the U.S. in 2022. I don't think the mentality of the workers would be able to wrap their minds around that, and I think it would cause a lot of issues. But it's a good base premise. Anyway, it doesn't always work. And by the way, it's kind of weird to wrap my head around the idea of like, if we had more money, we could produce more comic books when, right now there's 500 plus comics being created a month. Marvel and DC alone creating 80 or so. The last thing I want is for them to create more. but your point is taken. Um, anyway, the mail concludes, says, but is that premise even true? Does more money lead to better comics, or at least more good comics overall? I think that more money helps comics, and I've made this argument before, but let me give you a new one. And this is based on kind of the differences between manga culture, Japan, Korean web comics, and the U.S. In Japan and Korea, there is a push for I want to do the very best I can because that will get me personal satisfaction. It will give me meaning in my life. It will give me glory. It will give me fame. There's a lot of things that go on. And keep in mind, in Japanese culture, if you fail, if you try and you fail, then suicide is an option that a legit option that is on the table for a lot of people. But not a lot of people. I mean, people are dropping out of the sky every day. But I mean, it's one of those. It's handled and thought of differently. Of just like, well, I could do this. That could be. It's different than the U.S. of course. But overall, in the U.S., it's not the mentality of a lot of workers. And keep in mind that manga in many cases, the groups that are working on it have personal upside in this stuff. If you're working on a Marvel or DC book, you may have always wanted to work on Spider-Man because it's a bucket list item as an artist or a writer, but it's not like if you do an amazing job with Spider-Man, Marvel's going to give you a 10x multiplier on your pay. So that's another major difference. Now, I think more money in comics would help significantly, and I think you'd see much better results. And as I've given all the reasons in the past, like I said, I'm going to give you one more. Comics needs to be thought of as a destination point for a career, meaning you're not going to fall into it. You're not going to need to augment it with like a job at Starbucks or GameStop. You're not trying to get into Hollywood. You want to work in comics, not just because it's amazing and you want to create comics and you have ideas and you always want to do that, not just because it's a passion play, but because you actually, believe you can get rich doing so. That's the value that's what they mean by a destination job. Something where comics is your end destination. When you're growing up and you're getting like a retail job, if you're working at McDonald's, very few people are like, McDonald's is my destination job. Your destination job may be being a doctor, being a lawyer, but you need to make some money. So you're going to work in fast food during high school or college or whatever while you're doing this. A destination job is where you want to wind up. And comics isn't. It used to be, but it really isn't a destination job anymore. And so I think more money helps it become a destination job. I think until you create that, I think you've got too many people who are into comics, because of passion, which can be fine, but passion can also go horribly wrong. Or, they're like, I need to get some experience here so I can get that movie gig or that games gig where I get paid the real money. And, I mean, that's something that I've heard quite a bit. I have some people down at San Diego who have mailed me saying, hey, I had some good meetings outside of comics. That's where I'll make, quote, the real money. And so if you have it as a place where people actually want to wind up, then you're going to get better talent. You're going to get, it's naturally going to become more competitive. People are going to be more aggressive and wanting to keep their jobs and do a better job and succeed. If it's kept kind of poor, then anybody who's kind of ambitious or smart. Smart in that way. I mean smart in terms of like I want to have a highly funded career. I want to have that house in the pool. then you're going to find either a different way to do comics that doesn't help the mainstream at all, that benefits you, which is fine, or you're going to leave and go into a different industry, and that's where more money would help. If you saw more meaning for being into it, then you would see people taking it seriously. You'd see people planning more. You'd see higher talent going from TV and movies into comics because they want to get rich. I mean, all those reasons. And so I definitely think it would do better. And if there was more money in comics, you would see people, I think being a little bit more brutal when a comic failed, meaning if the comic itself doesn't perform well or doesn't do well, it wouldn't just linger on because nobody really cares. A book like any one of the major titles, your Iron Man, your Fantastic Four, your Avengers, a healthier industry with more money in it, nobody would be satisfied at those books selling 40, 50,000 copies. It was like, if it sells under 100,000, we're going to start to ring alarm bells and heads are going to roll. And that probably would generate better work. But anyway, great question. Thank you very much for sending it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course. And thanks for listening.